Today we're going to be making this deck case from 24 pack of beer. How you make this one is the same process to make a 24 can of pop one, a 20 can of pop, and a 36er as well. So stick around, see it all works, and let's get started. Today we're going to be making a case from this 2-4 of beer. We're going to be using this stencil that's suitable for it, and it's good for double-sleeved decks only, because the stencil's a little bit bigger than the non-sleeved, single-sleeved deck cases. At any rate, you're going to need a cutting board, a ruler, slow down. I need some glue, scissors, a pen, a utility knife. I need a round electrical cover plate for creasing, some pieces of wood and clamps for gluing everything together, and some of my deck boxes that I've finished that you can pick up at our website to learn how to make them. They're pretty awesome. We got lots of videos on that. Anyways, let's get started here. Okay, let's get started here. We'll open up the packaging. Now, the side that my hand's on, that's the side that you're going to be using to make the top and the front of your case. That corner of the stencil is going to line right up with that vertical factory fold. This right here is your factory fold 1. It's this one right here. It runs across the packaging. You're going to want that to straddle over top of that. There's factory fold 2. Right there, it runs up the packaging, and there's factory fold 3. Those are going to straddle the factory folds, and then that end piece will line right on that vertical factory fold edge, the left side of it, just like I'm doing. So you've got 3 factory folds and 2 spots where you've got to line up with that vertical factory fold right there. Once you've got all of those in place, as you can see, I'm showing you, this is the factory fold that runs across there. You should be able to see it inside of that little nub that's been cut out in your stencil. Once you've got that right where you want it, you're good to go. So you're just going to start tracing like I'm doing here. Not rocket science, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, the most important thing is making sure that your stencil doesn't move. And I don't always listen to my own advice, by the way. But if you follow these steps that I just gave you on how to place the stencil, it should be easy to put it back to where it needs to be. These little cutouts here that I'm drawing in there, those are going to be quite important later on, so make sure you draw those in nice and neatly. You don't have to draw there where the factory folds are. That cutout is just there so that you can see where to place the stencil. It's up to you, though. Once you get all the way down here to the bottom end here, you're going to put in a little, there's just a couple of little ones right down there that you got to, there's just enough room to make a mark so you can see where to make a line later on. And then I just do a little bit on the very bottom edge so I know where the end of the stencil is. And then there's the right side all finished. Now I'm flipping this around only because I've got such a small table and I can't move my camera anywhere. So you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. This is now the left side of the packaging, so you're going to use the left side of the stencil, obviously. You're going to line it up the same way. All 3 factory folds are going to straddle in there, and you're going to be on the right side of the left vertical factory fold. If you don't know what factory folds are and all the terminology, there's plenty of videos that we have on there where you can learn the terminology and how the deck boxes are made and everything like that. You're going to grab your ruler, and if it's like mine, you're going to go, ugh, this is too short. What do I do? Well, have no worry. I've got an answer for you here. If you measure line number 6 up here, down to factory fold 1, you're going to get that measurement, and then you just find some spot along the way where it'll work. I think it's around 5/8 of an inch, and then you can just join the line across like I'm about to do here, very slowly, and then you can repeat the same process with the other half. Then that'll get your line all the way across. Then what you can do is get your pair of scissors, and then you're going to cut that out. And once you've cut that out, now you have a longer ruler, as you're going to see, to do the rest of your lines. Now I'm trying, I like to place my new cardboard ruler on the bottom side of those little nubs. That just does not want to stay up for me here. I go on the bottom side of those little nubs that were drawn in there, so that when I crease it, it gets the crease right roughly in the middle of them, which is ideal. So I got to tell you that this cardboard ruler here is not the most stable thing there. I kind of have to use my hand on the one end there and my elbow on the other end like that to hold it in place, but you can find whatever works for you. Maybe you got a longer piece of wood and you don't need to. Either way, this guy and this guy you don't want to do. That's the second line from the bottom. We're going to do that from the other side later. This is the last line that we need to make. So that's where we're going to cut off the whole bottom half where my right hand is right now. Now, what's very important is that you cut that line nice and neat, because you're going to use up that entire piece, believe it or not. So take your time, cut it nice, and then we'll get to that later on here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut all down the left side here and all the way up the right side. So just using your scissors, cut along all those marks that you made with your pen, and then we'll have the outline of the stencil cut out and ready to start gluing. Take your time and do a nice job, and then I'll show you the next step. Alright, grab your cutting board, a piece of scrap paper board or a glove, put it on your electrical cover plate, and then you're going to push that thing down as hard as you physically can. And if you're doing it really hard, your hand should shake like mine is. Normally I would stand up and do this and push down, and I could push down even harder, but this is the only way I could hold the camera to record this, so I kind of have to do it across the table so I don't get as much leverage. So it looks like I'm really struggling there, and I am, but I'm literally pushing down as hard as I can. The harder you push, the better the crease that you're going to get. Now you can do every single one of them if you like, but to keep things going here, I just do the first two. And when I'm not recording it, while I'm finished one part and waiting for glue to dry, I can start creasing the other. It just makes things go faster for me. So I'm not necessarily going to do that today for the sake of showing you properly how to do this, but that's what I would normally be doing. So this time around, we're just going to crease these two lines to start. Give the hand a little bit of a break there, and then we can get started gluing. Right, I forgot about the corners here. Okay, we've got to, these are going to form the outer edge of your lid, the front of your lid. And sometimes the corners don't quite match up. So you want to dry fit them like I did there, and then just keep trimming off the edges until you get a nice 45-degree corner in there. If one's overlapping the other, just pick one and trim off a little bit until you get it the way you like it. Once you've done this side, go ahead and do the other side, and then we can start gluing, I promise. Before you start gluing, you're going to want to get your clamps out if you have any, your pieces of wood if you have any. If you don't have clamps, I've used bags of flour before. Anything heavy that you can put on top of it is a great idea. I was struggling to find my fourth little clamp, had to settle on the big monster there. So yeah, now that you're happy that all your corners work out just right, you're going to dry fit and figure out your plan of action. How are you going to hold everything down while it dries? So I'm just contemplating whether or not I could use my cutting board for the whole thing. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently this time. So you want to be careful when you put your glue on all of these edges here. You don't want anything squishing out of it, because then on your finished deck case you're going to see that glued or dried up clump of glue. So I use it a little sparingly, and then I spread it out with my finger like this, getting the entire surface area covered so that hopefully the entire section of it lays flat when it's all glued down. So anything extra for glue, I get rid of it in this part right there so that I don't have to worry about it squishing out once I flatten it. And you can do this however you like. What I do is I just hold it in place like this with my cutting board and a little piece of wood. It's a bit of a juggling act, and then some clamps. And then I'm going to do this the whole way down, and then you just make adjustments as you need to. You can consider starting at the other end if you want. With smaller 24 packs of pop cases that I make, the flap that's on the right side and the flap that's on the left side, I can get those at the same time I'm gluing this bottom edge. So it just depends on your situation and what materials you have on it and how you do it. Either way, if it takes you 1, 2, 3, or 4 tries to get it all done, then that's just the way it is. Make any adjustments that you need to, and make sure that if there's any little gaps in between, that they're sitting flat. And then once you've got that, you got to sit and wait until it dries. Give it another 5 to 10 minutes. All right, now it's time to take these clamps and these pieces of wood off. Get that cutting board out of the way here, and we're going to start doing these side flaps. Now, just because of what I have for materials to hold everything down, I'm just going to do these two at one set, or at once, and then I'll do the other two as well after these have dried. Same process, it's no different. Just make sure you get just enough to cover the bottom side of it there. Smear it with your fingers. You don't want any excess glue squishing out anywhere. Find a way to clamp it down and wait for it to dry. Next, we're going to focus on this little corner right here. We're going to get some scissors, and we're going to go in about 1/16 of an inch or a couple millimeters, and we're just going to cut up to that little line that there's a little nub in the stencil that just enough to make a mark in there when you were tracing it out there. You're going to cut up to that line just enough to get a small little piece off of each end. So that helps when you're folding the box together later on, and also it gives you a mark to draw your line when I flip it over here shortly. But first, what I'm going to do, and this ended up still being an issue for me, which you'll see in a little while, is I'm going to measure the distance between these two lines here, and then the distance between these two lines. They line up just perfectly. They're the same distance, but I still have problems with the case when I get it all finished. But anyways, we'll get back to that later. To start off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my ruler out, and I'm going to draw this line. Using my fancy cardboard stencil here, hold everything in place, and this little bottom flap, if you will, that's going to get folded in the opposite direction than the other folds have been done. So take the mark from this side, and then I can crease it from here as well. I was going to crease it now, but because the cutting board's being used, I'll have to wait a little bit. But at least while I was waiting for the glue to dry, I could get that line all ready. While I'm waiting for the glue to dry, let's do a couple of these side flaps. Now, we're using that piece that we cut off in the beginning that I said you'd use all of it. So you're going to line up these little triangles with that factory fold. You want to literally get it touching the bottom of that factory fold. I look through the triangle and try and find watch the factory fold go in through the triangle, and I bring it just so that it's to the bottom of it, so that I know that I'm literally right underneath it. And then wherever you see the letter D, you're going to draw a little line like that. And right there, and right there, and right there. And you're going to go through all those little rectangles and triangles, and wherever you see the letter D, just draw a little line like I'm doing. This is all set up so that you don't have to have measurements to read from, grab a ruler, and try and figure out how to make this the size it needs to be. All those measurements are now done for you. You just grab your ruler like I'm doing and connect the dots. I've added there. If you look on the stencil, the number 1 right there, you're going to label this same section with the number 1. That's very important because that's got to go on the bottom side of your deck case when you're done. So we're going to make a second glue flap here, or sorry, a side flap, and I'll spare you the boring video of me making it. Next, we're going to try and do this legend right here. That's a small space. It's not going to fit in there. The legend that I have in the stencil is a bit too big for it. A few of the different sizes of packaging don't leave enough room to completely fit it in. So you just do your best. I lined this one right up with the bottom of the second side flap, drew my lines in, and then I pushed the stencil to the very bottom of the paperboard and drew the bottom side in, and then joined it up with my ruler. You do whatever you got to do to make it work. If you have some extra packaging that you don't care about, whatever kind, it can be the same kind or a different kind, it doesn't matter. You can use that, and you can make your side flaps so that they look a bit differently, or you can just make your legend that way. Whatever suits you, that's what you can go ahead and do there. So once I get this all lined up, drawn, and rulered out, I can start. Well, I would start cutting it normally, but with this process, the glue's pretty much dried, so I want to get gluing on the next part, and then I can come back to this while the next part's ready to dry, and I can cut it out then. Okay, let's get all of these clamps off, the wood off. It's had plenty of time to dry. Now the section my right hand's on, that's the front of the lid. The next section up is the top of the lid. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to bend it so that it can do its job a bit better. And when I'm doing that, I'll often use a straight edge like this cutting board to help make sure I get a nice bend when I'm folding it right on the crease like that. And then I'll work it a little bit more until I'm happy with where it's at, just being gentle with it and using a straight edge wherever I possibly can there. That seems to work the best for me. Now, if you remember earlier, I talked about these little nubs that you were to cut out there. This is the reason for it. If you can see, when I squish the lid there, it kind of bunches up on itself. So those little nubs, if they're spaced far enough apart, when you flex the lid like that, they won't bunch up on each other. So if you're finding that happening, just take your X-Acto knife, your utility knife there, and cut a little bit more off so that there's a little bit more of a gap in there. That's my recommendation. Grab your round electrical cover plate, protect your hand, and have a cutting board underneath there, and then you can go ahead and crease out this line here just like I'm doing. Now that you've got this flipped back over again, grab your cover plate, put the cutting board underneath, and you've just got one more line to crease out, this one right there. Take your time and do a good job with it. Now, an important thing to remember here is the next line down from where I'm creasing, which is the factory fold line. That one, the one I'm creasing right now, and the one that I creased on the other side of the packaging, if those aren't just perfectly set up, then when it's time to flip the whole thing over, it's not going to sit perfectly. So do your best to get over everything just right when you're creasing, so that when you do this part right here and it folds over, it sits nice, perfectly, just the way that you want it to. Unfortunately, mine didn't sit just right because I was a little bit off, and well, you just have to play around with it until you can get it to where you're happy, so that you can glue it into place. Once you're satisfied with it, you're just going to run glue down the entire length of one of the two sections. You can go on either side, it doesn't matter. Put as much or as little glue on there as you want. And then you can go ahead and do this whole bottom flap the same way that you did the very top of the lid at the start of this gluing process. You want to have just enough glue on there so that when you smear it with your fingers, you cover the entire surface area, and that you don't have any extra glue on there that can squish out anywhere. So once you've got that just the way you want it, wipe off any excess glue there on your cutting board or on a rag or something. Then you can flip it over like this. This cutting board is perfect for doing this part. You're going to push down on that bottom flap to make sure that it's pushed right flat against the bottom of the deck case so that it glues nice and flat there. That's going to add some structural support as well, so it's nice to have. Then you can go about putting your your clamps on there with your wood, and then once you got that all done, I'm really slow here doing this part, obviously. But once you get this last one on there and you're happy with the way everything here is sitting, you're going to want to make sure that you push it to the right a little bit like that, so that the wood is pushing straight down on that bottom flap, and then you gotta wait. Alright, I noticed that this corner didn't dry up there. I've obviously taken the clamps off and everything. So what I do is I put a little bit of glue on a piece of scrap paper board there, and I can slide it right in there and smear it all around. That's the easiest way that I've found to do it. And then once I get enough glue in there, I can find a way to hold it in place while it dries. So that's a neat little tip there that you can try out if you're having the same issue as me. While you're waiting for that to dry, you can go ahead and get your scissors out there, and remember this piece here? Yeah, we can start cutting it out. So I won't spare you with the boring details of how I cut out these two side flaps and the legend, but cut them all out, and then we'll get ready for the next part. Once you've got them all cut there, you can proudly display them for yourself. Yay, good job. We're still waiting for that glue to dry on the bottom of the deck case. So while that's doing its thing here, yeah, that part right there that I'm just staring at and deciding what I'm going to do next, I'm going to grab the round electrical cover plate. Yeah, that one. Yeah, there you go. Figure it out. Come on. There you go. There it is. Good job. Grab that, and the cutting board's being used, so we're just going to use a small piece of wood right there. And then we're going to crease all of the lines that we made on both side flaps and the legend. All of these creases you're going to make on the side that I'm doing right now. You don't have to flip any of them over to crease, so I'll spare you the boring details of me creasing each one, and we'll get ready for the next spot. I'm just finishing up the legend last, and for some reason I just decided that I would start folding all the creases in to show you what it looks like there, what it's going to look like when it's all finished. You're just going to fold all the pieces in there, fold it over like this, and blammo, you've got a nice little handle for your legend. And then I'll go ahead and grab the other side. I'll fold it over, and I'm going to glue it all up. Just glue that side, let it dry while I get the next part of the deck case done. Now here's the part where it starts to finally look like a deck case. What you've got to do is this part folds over pretty good. So I left the next fold I didn't fold over the next crease yet, so that the lid stays up and you can kind of see what I'm doing. But we're going to dry fit one of those side flaps. You remember that section you wrote the number 1 on? That goes underneath your deck case, and then it folds all into place like this with all 3 of those little side flaps going inside of the side flap. So you're going to dry fit this just to see what it's like to try and piece it all together, see how hard it is to get all of those pieces in the right spot. It is a bit of a chore to juggle it all and make it all work and not smear glue everywhere when you're doing it. So try it a few times, find a process that works and is nice and easy for you, and then you can go ahead and literally glue the entire backside of your first side flap. Now when it comes to the very end sections, you're going to want to, like this one here, same thing, you're going to smear it, and you don't want any excess glue coming out the sides or the front of it. So do the same with this one as well. Get all the excess glue off. You can wipe it on there, wipe it on your cutting board, on your pants, or in your hair, whatever you like. Once you've got that ready, what I do is the section with the number 1 on it, I slip it underneath the bottom just like that, ever so delicately. And then I fold it over as you're seeing, and I try and very carefully get all 3 of those flaps in between the side flap and that bottom piece down to where it needs to be without smearing any glue anywhere inside of the deck case. Yeah, I made it look easy here, but believe me, the first few times I did it, I struggled. Maybe you'll be different. I'm going to use the clamp and a couple pieces of wood. I actually use 2 clamps here. I'm just struggling to figure out the best way to hold it all into place. And that's how I'll hold it into place so that I can let it dry. I forgot to say, make sure that all three of those little flaps are pushed in just nice and tight before you leave it. So check to make sure everything's nice and snug the way it needs to be, and then you can leave it for drying. But before you do that, there's one more test that you need to do. And let's just see if I grab. Yeah, I do grab it. Good job. I'm looking for my double-sleeved deck. I'm going to fit it inside there. Make sure it fits in there. That's kind of an important deal. And it does, so I can let that one dry. And while I'm waiting for that one to dry, I might as well do the same thing with this other side. Once again, the section with the number 1 on it, that goes on the very bottom. I'm going to slide it underneath like I'm changing a diaper. And then I'm going to very carefully fold in those 3 flaps and fold that over top, trying to keep everything in nice. And then the inside bottom flap there, we don't want to smear any glue on the inside of the deck case. Sometimes it goes smooth, sometimes it's a real struggle. Once you get it into place there and you're happy with it, you can get your pieces of wood and your clamps and you can squish it in place, test it out. Oh yeah, here's a neat little idea that I was going to show you here. If you don't have clamps, just use 2 deck boxes that are full of cards. Squish them together like this, and you just got to sit there and hold it for 10 or 15 minutes there while it dries. But look for flaps like this that came out, push it back into place, and then once you're happy with everything sitting, you can clamp her down and let her dry. I laid this down like this while it was drying, which was a bit of a mistake because the bottom needs to be pushed down on so that it glues nice and flat. Now you can choose to scrub these with your wire brush if you want. I haven't done it. It's worked out fine. That's your call. I want to, before I take these off, I want to show my mistake here. This part from here up to here on the stencil is the same size as this part to this part. So when you fold it over, it's supposed to sit really nicely, kind of like this one did. But for some reason, when I creased this line, when I creased this line, and when I creased that line here, it was out enough, because this is my crease line right here, so it put it out a bit. So you have to be very exact when you're making those 3 creases so that you don't have this happen. All right. Let's take these off here. Now, while I show you the rest of this, let's do one more thing here. We started making our legend. You notice how I'm just doing these things to keep busy, right? While one thing's, the glue's drying, I can be cutting the next thing and so on and so forth. This is a timely process to make one of these, so by doing that, you can save yourself some time. Anyway, the last bit of gluing that we got to do is this legend here. Just put some glue on the first two segments like that, and then you're just going to fold it over just like that. Get the excess glue cleaned off. That's all there is to it. So what we can do is, I can go like this. Let me Put a board on here. However you want to do it, you just got to find a way to hold it in place. And then I'll just lay it down flat like this so that it can dry. Let me just put it up here out of the way. Okay, this is pretty much it. If you notice, I saved folding this one over till the very end. That way it kept the lid out of my way while I was doing this. So what we can do is, if you'll also notice, let me use the Dr. Pepper here. This is a non-sleeved, single-sleeved deck. This is a double-sleeved deck. 4 millimeters bigger this way. You'll notice the difference. That's why there are double-sleeved decks and non-sleeve, single-sleeve deck only stencils for each one, the different sizes. So that's your difference right there. These fit in really nice. You got a little bit of room. This is bent out a bit this way, so you can push it in and it'll sit a little bit tighter. Anyway, let's populate this thing with some deck boxes. We got 120 single sleeve shreddies. I took a Fruitopia jug, 2 of them actually, to make that one. We got this one made from some Pilsner. We got an Orange Crush and a Mountain Dew one. So there's your deck case. It folds in, and there you have it. There's your deck, your case. Now, this legend right here, this sits in here. What you would do is you would write on here Orange Crush and then your deck name, Mountain Dew, the deck name, and you do that with all of them all the way down your legend, so that when this is closed, and let's just imagine you got a whole bunch of deck cases made up here because you got lots of decks you love to play, right? You got a bunch of them here. Then you can just literally open this up. You can see which decks. Instead of taking this lid and opening it up and trying to get this one open and closing it, you can literally just go like that and see what's in each one. So that's the value of having the legend. So this is 24 cans of beer there, and this is 24 cans of pop. Just the way that the manufacturers make the boxes, that's the way they come out. They're different. There's nothing I can do about that. And even last 20 cans of pop, it's the second largest size. 36 cans of beer, I believe, is the same size as this. I have yet to make one of those cases out. That'll be coming up pretty soon. But even with these little guys, you can make themes. You can do cereal all the way across. You can do pop. You can do beer, chocolate bars, whatever you like. They all work great. Craft dinner. I've even I've made all kinds of different ones. There's your deck cases. There you have it. Thanks for watching.